A small gray pigeon burst out of the trees, already hit, already bleeding, and still climbing into the sky. A rifle shot punched straight through its chest. Another blast shredded its legs so badly it barely hung on. But that bird didn't turn back. It kept flying anyway, because down in those woods, 500 American soldiers were being crushed from every side. And this pigeon was carrying the last chance they had. This happened in World War I, in the Argonne forest of France, a place so thick and dark that men got lost 10 steps off the trail. In October of 1918, the war was almost over, but the fighting was still savage. American units were pushing forward, and one group was sent too far, too fast, with bad maps and worse communication. They didn't know it yet, but within hours, they'd become a trapped pocket of men history would call the Lost Battalion. And before we dig deeper into how one injured pigeon changed everything, make sure you're subscribed to Krimzo Docs so you never miss the true stories that sound fake until you realize they actually happened. The Lost Battalion wasn't literally a battalion. It was around 550 men from the 77th Division, led by Major Charles Whittlesey. Their orders were to advance through the Argonne and keep going, even if other units slowed down. That sounds simple until you realize the forest was full of German machine gun nests, hidden trenches, and artillery that could erase whole patches of earth. Whittlesey's men pushed forward, and then the units on their sides didn't. Suddenly, the Americans weren't part of a line anymore. They were a bulge sticking out into enemy territory, surrounded on 3 sides, with the 4th side slowly closing. At first, Whittlesey tried to do what any commander would do. He sent runners with messages. The problem is, runners had to cross open areas or winding ravines where German guns were already zeroed in. One runner would leave. Minutes later, nobody would see him again. Then another, gone. By the end of the first day, the Lost Battalion's situation was already turning into a nightmare. They were low on food, low on water, and wounded men were piling up. But here's the part most people don't know yet. Some of the deadliest fire hitting them wasn't even coming from the Germans. Because in the chaos of the Argonne, the American artillery behind them didn't have a clear idea where Whittlesey's men really were. The maps were off, the positions were shifting, smoke and trees blocked visibility, and soon, shells started landing right on top of the Lost Battalion. Friendly fire. Imagine being trapped in a bowl of forest, German guns raking the edges, and then your own side begins dropping explosions into your center. Men who had survived machine guns suddenly went down from American shells. Morale cracked. Panic spread. And Whittlesey realized something terrifying. If he couldn't get one clear message through, his own army might finish the job the Germans started. That's when the pigeons came out. Back then, pigeons weren't some cute hobby. They were war gear. Fast, quiet, and hard to intercept. A message in a tiny capsule could travel miles faster than any human could crawl through gunfire. Whittlesey had a small group of carrier pigeons with him, handled by soldiers trained to care for them under combat conditions. And he started using them like lifelines. He wrote coordinates, he wrote warnings, he begged for support. The first pigeon was released. It never came back. The second one went up, also gone, either shot, lost, or captured. With each failed bird, the options shrank. And there was one pigeon left that Whittlesey and his men saved for the worst moment. The moment when it was truly now or never. Its name was Cher Ami, which in French means dear friend. And keep that name in your head, because by the end of this story, you'll understand why soldiers who saw death every day treated this bird like a legend. By October 4th, things hit bottom. The Lost Battalion had been surrounded for days. Their food was almost gone. Water had to be sipped from mud, if you could find it. Wounded men lay under leaves, trying not to cry out because any sound could bring a German grenade. And now, the friendly artillery was landing so close that branches were raining down like spears. Whittlesey needed to stop the barrage immediately. Not in an hour, not later, now. He scribbled a message and wrapped it into the small capsule meant for the pigeon's leg. And if you're wondering what those exact words were, stay with me, because that message becomes one of the most famous notes ever sent from a battlefield. They prepared Cher Ami. The men held it gently, even though their hands were shaking. It's hard to explain how tense that moment was. When you release a pigeon, you're not just hoping it flies. You're hoping it lives long enough to clear the treetops. You're hoping it doesn't panic and land somewhere. You're hoping it knows exactly where home is, across miles of smoke and noise. And you're hoping that somewhere out there, someone will actually read what you sent and believe you. Whittlesey looked around at his men, knowing this could be the final try. Then, Cher Ami was thrown into the air. For a split second, it worked. The bird climbed, wings cutting through smoke. Then, the Germans saw it. A pigeon leaving a surrounded position is not subtle. It's a moving dot in a sky full of death. German troops opened fire. Bullets snapped through branches. Men watched helpless as Cher Ami took hits. One round tore through its chest. Another struck its leg, nearly ripping it off. Feathers exploded into the air. The bird jerked, lost altitude, and for a heartbeat, it looked like it might fall back into the trees and disappear like the others. But Cher Ami didn't fall. It leveled out and kept going, flying wounded, pumping its wings harder, rising and dipping through broken air. This is where it gets strange. A bird that small shouldn't have been able to fly like that, not with that kind of damage. Even if you've never held a pigeon, just think about it. It's a few ounces of muscle and bone. Now picture a hole through its chest and a leg hanging by skin. It should have dropped like a stone. Instead, it did the one thing the Lost Battalion needed most. It escaped. And Cher Ami didn't just escape the forest, it crossed miles of war zone. The pigeon flew roughly 25 miles back toward American lines, over trenches, over artillery, over smoke columns and shattered trees, over men who might shoot first and ask questions later. All while bleeding, all while fighting shock, all while carrying one tiny capsule that weighed almost nothing, but meant everything. And if you think the miracle is that it made the trip, wait until you hear what condition it was in when it finally reached the people it was trying to save. Cher Ami crashed down at the division headquarters like it had been thrown out of the sky. Soldiers ran over, expecting to find another dead bird. Instead, it was alive, barely. Its chest was soaked. One eye was said to be damaged, and that leg, the leg with the message, was almost gone. The capsule was still attached, hanging there as if the bird had protected it with its life. The men carefully pulled the message free, unfolded it, and read Whittlesey's words. "We are along the road parallel to 276.4. Our own artillery is dropping a barrage directly on us. For heaven's sake, stop it!" That was the reveal. Not a long speech, not a dramatic paragraph, just a simple, desperate line from trapped men being destroyed by their own side. And the power of that line was instant. Officers corrected the artillery fire, the barrage shifted away, and that one change meant the Lost Battalion could keep breathing long enough for rescue to even be possible. But that wasn't the end of what Cher Ami's flight did. With the friendly fire stopped, American forces could focus on breaking through to Whittlesey's position. The Lost Battalion still had Germans around them. They still had almost no supplies. They still had wounded men fading fast. But now, the worst mistake, the shells falling on their heads, was fixed. Over the next stretch of fighting, relief units finally managed to reach them. Out of the roughly 550 men who went in, only 194 were able to walk out under their own power when it was over. The rest were dead, missing, or too badly wounded to move. Think about that number for a second. 194 survivors. In a situation where everyone expected zero. And if you're wondering what happened to Cher Ami after taking a bullet through the chest and losing a leg, that part is almost as unbelievable as the rescue itself, so stay to the end. The soldiers at headquarters didn't treat Cher Ami like equipment. They treated it like a wounded hero. Medics worked on the bird, trying to stop the bleeding and save what they could. The leg couldn't be saved, so the story goes. Cher Ami was later fitted with a small wooden leg. The pigeon lived through the war, which already feels impossible, and word of what it had done spread quickly. This wasn't a rumor whispered around a campfire. This was documented through military channels because the message it carried changed an entire outcome. Cher Ami received the Croix de Guerre, a French military decoration for bravery. A pigeon. Getting a medal meant for battlefield courage. Let that sink in. In a world where medals were handed to hardened soldiers, this bird's flight was considered brave enough to honor. And in a way, it makes sense. A human can choose to be a hero. A pigeon is just following instinct, trained direction, a pull toward home. But under gunfire, with its body failing, Cher Ami did what humans couldn't do anymore. It crossed the killing space. Cher Ami didn't live for years after that. The bird died in 1919, not long after the war ended. But even in death, it didn't disappear. The preserved body is kept as a piece of history, a reminder that war stories aren't always about the biggest weapons or the loudest battles. Sometimes it's about a small animal, a folded note, and a flight that should have been impossible. So here's the real question. If you were Major Whittlesey, surrounded, starving, and being shelled by your own side, and you had one last pigeon left, would you risk it right then, or hold it back and hope for another chance? Tell me what you'd do in the comments. And if this story surprised you, share this video with someone who thinks they've heard every World War I legend, because this one is real, and it was written by a bird with a hole through its chest that refused to fall.